Let's talk more then about the earthquake in Syria and Turkey. Today we're joined tonight by Dr. David Khoza, who's with the SA Council for Geoscience. A very good evening to you, Doctor. Thank you so much for your time. First things first, what would cause an earthquake at this level? All right, I think you're muted, Dr. Khoza. If you're able to just unmute, and then we can pick up on that question of what would cause a disaster at this level.
Yeah, thanks, Mbekile. Good evening. The earthquake in Turkey happened on a very known fault line that is called the Anatolia fault line. And this is basically where you have continental or tectonic plates coming together. And in this area of Turkey, it is quite known and it's quite earthquakes are quite prevalent. And there's been major earthquakes in this area in the past, most recently in 1999, where we had almost a similar magnitude earthquake. So this is really where we have a triple junction of tectonic plates moving next to each other, past one another. And this is the result of the earthquake that we see.
And as you say, this area in 1999 in the city of Izmit, there was also a massive quake then that killed close to 20,000 people. 1939, 30,000 people were killed in northeastern Turkey. And much of the country and how much it's prone to this sort of tragedy has to do with where Turkey is placed geographically, right?
That's correct, yeah. So the area is quite tectonically active. So this is, unlike what we have here in South Africa from a geological point of view, where it's relatively stable, but in areas like Turkey, that is prone to these movements of tectonic plates, these earthquakes are quite normal in a way, even though you don't necessarily get very, very large events on a regular basis. But as I mentioned, the most recent being in 1999. So the area is what we would classify as being tectonically active.
And also quite curious, and something else that's compounded the scale of the disaster in Turkey is that people were woken up by that 7.8 magnitude quake in the early hours of this morning. In subsequent hours, there have been several others, the worst of them also measuring above 7 on the Richter scale. Is that very unusual?
Yeah, so when you have large magnitude events like you have here, it is not unusual to get aftershocks of really high magnitude. So in this case, you have a 7.8 magnitude earthquake, original earthquake, and then it's followed up by almost similar type magnitude events. And it's not necessarily unusual. And in this area, we've had almost 100 aftershocks of different magnitudes since the original 415 earthquakes. So it is quite expected. It's quite normal to have aftershocks in this area because we had a large earthquake. Then the magnitude, the aftershocks would necessarily also be high in magnitude.
Well, what we're hearing now from geological officials is that the second larger one around lunchtime, Turkish time, was not even an aftershock in terms of classification, but an earthquake of its own. Does that happen a lot where you are hit more than once by an actual earthquake?
Yeah, so that's not common. So generally, what you would have is that you have a bigger earthquake, and then it would be followed by aftershocks, lower magnitude aftershocks. So in this case, we still classify, having a 7.8 magnitude earthquake. And if any other earthquakes happen in the region, it would necessarily be classified as an aftershock, especially if it's a lower magnitude.
Multiple aftershocks, as you were saying, including other smaller earthquakes in the hours since that initial one. What are the possible implications then for the rescue missions? We've seen even civilians trying to look for loved ones and neighbors beneath some of the rubble. Is it safe to do so?
It is not safe. Obviously, we have to save lives. We have to look at getting people under buildings that have collapsed, and we can't stop the rescue efforts. But it is those buildings themselves that have collapsed would not be safe. And in fact, in many situations, what you get is that because of the rescue efforts or the attempted rescue effort, the buildings tend to collapse, and you have even additional fatalities. And this is what we're seeing here. But the reason why you have so many fatalities in Turkey is because it happened, so early in the morning, and people were sleeping and all of that. So they were woken up with buildings falling on top of them. So it is quite a dangerous rescue mission, and it is quite devastating to see the effects.
Dr. David Khoza from the SA Council for Geoscience, a pleasure to speak to you, sir. Thank you for your time tonight.